Shocking revelations rock Port Charles. Nathan's bombshell about Morgan sends Sonny into action. The halls of General Hospital were buzzing with their usual chaos when an unexpected encounter would change everything for Sonny Corinthos. What started as a routine visit to check on a friend became the moment that would shatter his world and rebuild it simultaneously. The man who had mourned his son Morgan for nearly a decade was about to discover that grief had been built on lies. Sonny had been making his way through the hospital corridors, his mind preoccupied with recent family drama involving the Quartermain while reading and Tracy's latest schemes. The familiar antiseptic smell and constant hum of medical equipment provided an oddly comforting backdrop to his thoughts. He never expected to literally bump into Nathan West, the man who was supposed to be dead for 7 years. Nathan, Sonny's voice carried a mixture of disbelief and caution. After all, in Port Charles, resurrection stories were becoming disturbingly common, but seeing the face of Detective Nathan West in the flesh was still shocking. Nathan looked up from the wheelchair he was occupying, his expression a complex mixture of recognition and something else, something darker, that Sonny couldn't quite place. "Sonny Corinthos," Nathan said, his voice carrying an odd tone that seemed both familiar and foreign. An unlikely confession. What followed was perhaps the most surreal conversation of Sonny's life. As they found themselves in a quiet corner of the hospital, away from the bustling nurses and concerned families, Nathan's demeanor shifted. The conversation started friendly enough, to men who had shared mutual respect during Nathan's time as a detective, catching up after what everyone believed had been a permanent goodbye. "You know, Sonny," Nathan began, his eyes scanning the area to ensure their privacy, "there are things about my absence that would interest you. Things about your family." Sonny's instincts immediately sharpened. Years of navigating the dangerous waters of Port Charles had taught him to recognize when someone was about to drop significant information. "What kind of things, Nathan?" The response that came would haunt Sonny for weeks to come. Nathan leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, and delivered the words that would change everything. "Morgan is dead. Sonny, your son is very much alive." The world seemed to stop spinning. Sonny felt his knees threaten to give way as the impossible words registered. Morgan, his beloved son who had died in that horrific car bombing meant for Julian Jerome, was alive. The grief that had consumed him, the guilt that had eaten at his soul, the countless nights he had relived that terrible moment when he learned of Morgan's death, all of it based on a lie. The Faison connection. But Nathan wasn't finished with his revelations. As Sonny struggled to process the first bombshell, Nathan continued with information that would prove even more disturbing. "He's been working for my father, Sonny. Caesar Faison has had Morgan under his control this entire time." The mention of Faison sent chills through Sonny's body. The notorious villain who had terrorized Port Charles for years, who had supposedly died in 2018, was apparently very much alive and had been orchestrating a cruel psychological torture against the Corinthos family. The implications were staggering. Not only was Morgan alive, but he had been transformed into something else entirely under Faison's influence. Nathan's own connection to this revelation was equally troubling. As Faison's son, Nathan's return from the dead was no coincidence. The theories circulating around Port Charles about Nathan not being himself, about possibly being under Faison's control or influence, suddenly made terrible sense. "How long have you known?" Sonny managed to ask, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Since I woke up from my own resurrection," Nathan replied, his expression darkening. "Faison has been very thorough in his planning. Morgan was never meant to die in that explosion. It was all carefully orchestrated to make you believe you had lost him forever while Faison molded him into something else entirely." Jason gets the call. Within hours of this earth-shattering conversation, Sonny was on the phone with Jason Morgan, his most trusted friend and ally. Jason, who had his own complex history with presumed deaths and secret organizations, listened intently as Sonny recounted Nathan's revelations. "We have to find him, Jason." Sonny's voice was filled with desperate determination. "We have to find Morgan and bring him home before Faison's programming becomes permanent." Jason's response was immediate and unwavering. Despite the dangers, despite the complex web of deception they would have to navigate, there was never any question about what they would do. We'll get him back, Sonny. Whatever Faison has done to him, whatever lies he's been fed, we'll bring Morgan home. The planning began immediately. Both men understood that they were likely walking into one of Faison's elaborate traps, but the alternative, leaving Morgan in the hands of that madman, was unthinkable. The race against time. As Sonny and Jason began formulating their rescue mission, the urgency of the situation became increasingly apparent. Nathan's warnings about Faison's methods suggested that time was running out. The longer Morgan remained under Faison's influence, the more difficult it would become to reverse whatever psychological conditioning had been implemented. The investigation would require all of their resources and connections. Port Charles had seen its share of resurrection storylines and elaborate deceptions, but this level of psychological manipulation was unprecedented even by soap opera standards. Faison's reputation for complex, long-term schemes meant that every move had to be carefully calculated. Jason's own experience with memory manipulation and false identities would prove invaluable in understanding what Morgan might be going through. The parallels between Jason's own struggles with memory mapping and identity confusion provided a framework for understanding how Faison might have corrupted Morgan's sense of self. Family bonds and dangerous missions. The revelation about Morgan's survival would inevitably ripple through the entire Corinthos family. Carly, who had never fully recovered from the loss of her son, would need to be told, but carefully, and only when they had a concrete plan for his rescue. The emotional stakes were impossibly high, with years of grief and trauma hanging in the balance. Nathan's role in all of this remained ambiguous and troubling. His willingness to share this information with Sonny suggested either a desire for redemption or another layer of Faison's manipulation. The fact that Nathan himself might be under Faison's influence made every piece of information suspect, requiring careful verification before any action could be taken. As Sonny and Jason prepared for what could be the most dangerous mission of their lives, the weight of hope and fear pressed down on them equally. The possibility of reuniting with Morgan was everything Sonny had dreamed of, but the reality of what they might find, a son transformed into an enemy by years of psychological manipulation, was his worst nightmare. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just Morgan's fate, but the future of the entire Corinthos family. With Faison pulling the strings from the shadows and Nathan's true loyalties uncertain, Sonny and Jason would need every advantage they could muster to bring Morgan home safely. The revelation had changed everything, transforming years of grief into a desperate rescue mission that would test every bond of family and friendship in Port Charles. Next, we will learn about the chilling possibility that Drew Kane could face a sinister poisoning plot after narrowly escaping a deadly shooting. In the heart-pounding world of Port Charles, where secrets and betrayals lurk around every corner, Drew's recent brush with death has left fans on the edge of their seats, wondering if the shadowy figure behind the attack will strike again with a more insidious method. The original gunfire incident unfolded like a scene from a thriller novel, with Drew targeted in his own home under the cover of night. But now spoilers hint at a shift to something far more covert and lethal, potentially turning his recovery into a nightmare of suspicion and survival. Let's rewind to that fateful evening when the bullets flew, transforming Drew's quiet residence into a battlefield of fear and uncertainty. As the clock ticked past midnight, an unseen assailant fired two precise shots through the window, aiming straight for Drew, who was unwinding after a long day of navigating family tensions and business dealings at Aurora Media. The shooter, cloaked in darkness and perhaps wearing a disguise to evade any potential witnesses, assumed their work was done when they heard the impact and saw Drew slump, fleeing the scene without a backward glance. Huddled in the adjacent bedroom, Trina Robinson and her colleague Kai Taylor froze in terror, their whispers barely audible over the pounding of their hearts, choosing silence to avoid drawing more danger to themselves or Drew. Trina, still reeling from her own emotional entanglements with Port Charles's elite, clutched Kai's arm, both of them paralyzed by the realization that they could have been next. But fate intervened dramatically when Tracy Quartermain, ever the sharp-tongued matriarch with her impeccable timing, arrived unannounced at Drew's door. She had come not just to meddle in his life, but to deliver a stern lecture about protecting the Quartermain legacy and the vulnerable kids caught in the crossfire of adult dramas, like Scout and the extended family ties that bind them all. Spotting the chaos through the slightly ajar door, Tracy's instincts kicked in. She dialed emergency services faster than anyone could say Quartermain fortune, summoning paramedics who stabilized Drew just in time, whisking him away to General Hospital amid flashing lights and sirens that echoed through the sleepy streets. Drew's miraculous survival, thanks to Tracy's quick thinking and the skilled hands of the GH medical team, has only amplified the danger swirling around him. As the perpetrator now knows, their initial plan failed spectacularly. With Drew's wounds healing left his vigilance low, the hospital room lacking even basic security detail despite the high-profile nature of the attack presents a golden opportunity for round 2. Spoilers tease that the assassin, driven by motives possibly linked to corporate rivalries or personal vendettas from Drew's military past, might pivot to a less flashy but equally deadly tactic: poisoning. Imagine the scene: a seemingly innocuous visitor or staff member slipping a toxic substance into Drew's for drip or his bedside water pitcher, exploiting the chaos of shift changes in the bustling corridors of GH. This method would allow the killer to operate in the shadows, blending into the parade of nurses, doctors, and well-wishers like Elizabeth Weber, or even a disguised foe from his Aurora boardroom battles. The poison could be something subtle, mimicking a heart condition or allergic reaction, delaying detection and buying the culprit precious time to vanish. Drew, already grappling with fragmented memories from his presumed death years ago, might dismiss early symptoms as side effects from the surgery, only to collapse in agony hours later, his body convulsing as alarms blare through the ward. The shooting has ignited a full-scale frenzy in Port Charles, with the Port Charles Police Department, led by the no-nonsense Commissioner Anna Devane, launching an exhaustive investigation that's peeling back layers of the city's underbelly. Detectives have combed the crime scene for ballistic evidence, tracing the gun's origin to a black market dealer with ties to Valentin Casadin's shadowy dealings, while surveillance footage from nearby dock reveals a suspicious figure in a hooded jacket slipping away toward the waterfront. Anna, drawing on her WSB expertise, has interrogated potential suspects, including disgruntled ex-employees from Drew's publishing empire and even family members harboring old grudges, like the ever-scheming Helena Casadin's lingering influence through hidden allies. Yet, progress is slow. The shooter vanished like a ghost, leaving behind only a single casing etched with cryptic markings that hint at a larger conspiracy involving international espionage. For Drew, this means constant peril: no more late-night walks along the harbor or casual coffees at Kelly's Diner without looking over his shoulder. The lack of round-the-clock protection at the hospital is a glaring oversight, especially as nurses whisper about anonymous tips flooding the tip line, some praising the attempt as justice served for Drew's past sins, fueling speculation that the motive runs deeper than a simple hit. As the plot thickens, poisoning emerges as the perfect evolution of the killer's strategy, offering stealth and misdirection in a town where trust is as fragile as fine china. Picture Kai Taylor, Drew's loyal but enigmatic assistant, entering the room with a tray of hospital-issued meals, only for the toxicology report later to reveal arsenic or a rare neurotoxin laced into the jello or soup. Kai, who was first on the scene post-shooting and handled the bat used in a prior altercation at the Quartermain estate, could find himself under the microscope when his fingerprints matched those on the weapon, dragging him into a web of accusations that tests his allegiance. Inventing a twist, perhaps Kai discovers a hidden note in Drew's belongings warning of betrayal from within Aurora, forcing him to play detective while dodging suspicion from the PCPD. This approach not only evades the risks of another public shooting too noisy, even with a suppressor, and repetitive for the drama-hungry viewers, but also sows chaos among Drew's inner circle. Trina might rally her art gallery connections to uncover clues through overheard conversations at the Jerome Gallery, while Carly Spencer, ever the protective ex, pushes for private security funded by her Metro Court profits. The poisoning could unfold during a vulnerable moment, like Drew's discharge planning session, where a tampered medication vial sends him into seizures, prompting Kai to frantically call 911 as monitors flatline, blurring the lines between hero and suspect in the eyes of onlookers. This isn't the first time Port Charles has seen a target dodge one bullet only to face a barrage of escalating threats, echoing the harrowing saga of Sonny Corinthos years back when his world exploded literally. Sonny, the mob kingpin with a heart of gold under his tough exterior, survived an initial blast rigged at his penthouse, a bomb intended to erase him from the map amid his turf wars with the Five Families. But the attackers didn't stop there. Soon after, a rogue nurse in Los Angeles, posing as a caregiver during Sonny's recovery from a separate skirmish, attempted to inject him with a lethal air embolism, her syringe gleaming under the sterile lights as she whispered false reassurances. In a cruel twist of fate, it was Michael Corinthos who bore the brunt of the penthouse explosion, his burns and trauma shifting the family's focus while Sonny evaded the needle by sheer luck and Jason Morgan's timely intervention. That storyline unfolded over weeks, layering assassination attempts with car chases through the Badlands, poison chalices at high society galas, and even a sniper on a rooftop during Sonny's wedding vow renewal to Carly. Drew's arc mirrors this pattern, suggesting his poison ordeal could spiral into a multi-episode thriller, perhaps involving a chase through the catacombs beneath the Casa Dini estate or a tainted gift from a false admirer. Spoilers indicate that just as Sonny's threats revealed deeper betrayals like his own son's unwitting involvement, Drew might uncover a mole in his company, someone feeding intel to the shooter for a cut of the Quartermain fortune. Beyond the immediate peril, Drew's survival has rippled through Port Charles, straining alliances and exposing fractures in the fabric of the community. Michael Corinthos, already burdened by his own corporate clashes, might step up as a brotherly guardian, installing hidden cameras in Drew's new safe house on the outskirts of town, a fortified cabin overlooking Spoon Island. Meanwhile, Nina Reeves, torn between her journalism ethics and personal loyalties, could pen an expose that inadvertently tips off the killer, forcing her to go undercover at Crimson Magazine to trace the poison source to a shady supplier in Beecher's Corners, adding inventive depth. Envision a subplot where Drew's son Scout, now a curious teen navigating high school drama at Port Charles University, stumbles upon an encrypted file on Drew's laptop detailing past enemies, pulling her into the fray and heightening the stakes with a generational twist. The PCPD's pursuit intensifies as Commissioner Devane recruits Felicia Scorpio for her Scorpio family insights into covert ops, their late-night stackouts yielding a breakthrough, a burner phone signal linking the shooter to a yacht moored at the docks, owned by a pseudonym tied to Drew's long-lost twin, Franco Baldwin's ghostly legacy. Next, we will learn about the escalating tensions in Port Charles as WSB operative Jack Brennan issues a dire warning to Jason Morgan, ensuring that Carly Spencer remains completely oblivious to her daughter's secret life as a spy. In the shadowy underbelly of Port Charles, where the salty breeze from the harbor carries whispers of danger, Jason Morgan stands alone on the weathered pier, his face etched with a storm of unspoken worries. He's just wrapped up a tense meeting at the Corinthos coffee warehouse, the air still thick with the aroma of roasted beans masking deeper intrigues. Or perhaps he's lingering near Bobby's diner, reflecting on old loyalties that never quite fade. The photo captured in the latest Soap Opera Digest edition paints a vivid picture. Jason gazes out at the choppy waters, his broad shoulders tense under the dim glow of a single street lamp, while Brennan creeps up from the fog-shrouded shadows like a predator closing in on prey. Brennan's eyes burn with unyielding intensity, his posture radiating authority forged in the fires of international espionage, a man who has danced on the edge of global threats for years. This isn't a casual encounter. It's a calculated ambush, timed perfectly to catch Jason off guard amid the isolation of the waterfront. where echoes of waves crashing against the docks amplify the gravity of what's about to unfold. Brennan's grudge runs deep, rooted in Jason's unexpected involvement at the notorious Five Poppies nightclub, a hotspot pulsing with illicit deals and hidden agendas that the WSB had been meticulously monitoring for months. He knows every detail of how Jason swooped in like a guardian angel or, perhaps a devil in disguise, rescuing not just the enigmatic S. Vaughn, but also Jocelyn Jacks and the resilient Britt Westburn from a web of peril that could have unraveled everything. Picture the chaos, strobe lights flashing over panicked faces, the thump of bass drowning out cries for help, as Jason navigates the crowd with his signature precision, pulling his allies from the clutches of danger just as the operation teeters on collapse. Brennan sees because Jason's actions, while heroic, expose layers of the mission that were meant to stay buried, turning a tightly controlled sting into a public fiasco. Now, with the prime suspect, the elusive Pascal, a shadowy arms dealer with ties to rogue nations and a reputation for vanishing like smoke slipping through their fingers into the night, Brennan pins the blame squarely on Jason's interference. Pascal is just any fugitive. He's a master of deception, rumored to have once orchestrated a heist that left Interpol scrambling for years. And his escape leaves the WSB's credibility hanging by a thread, with agents worldwide now questioning the integrity of their Port Charles branch. Jason, ever the stoic enforcer, has already sworn a solemn vow to Jocelyn, his voice low and resolute in the aftermath of the rescue, promising he won't breathe a word of her covert role to her mother. This oath binds him tighter than any chain, a necessary shield to preserve the fragile covers that spies like Jocelyn rely on during high-stakes missions, where one slip could mean life or death for everyone involved. Imagine Jocelyn's eyes, fierce with determination yet shadowed by fear, as she extracts this promise from Jason. Knowing the double life she's chosen, balancing her college dreams with espionage, could shatter Carly's world if exposed. Carly's entanglement with Brennan adds another layer of complication. Their budding romance, sparked over shared glances at Kelly's diner and late-night confessions about past regrets, has her heart fluttering in ways she hasn't felt since her days with Sonny. But learning that her fiery daughter, Jocelyn, is not just dating a spy but actively working under Brennan's command, that revelation would ignite a fury in Carly, turning her protective instincts into a wildfire that could consume alliances and expose vulnerabilities across the board. Jocelyn's recruitment into the WSB stemmed from her own brush with danger during a semester abroad, where she uncovered a smuggling ring that caught Brennan's eye, transforming her from a wide-eyed student into a sharp operative with skills in surveillance and quick thinking. Yet Brennan, with his finely tuned instincts honed from decades in the field, harbors no illusions about Jason's reliability. Despite the man's own history of being coerced into FBI servitude, a chapter that should scream secrecy expert to anyone paying attention, Jason's past as Sonny Corinthos' right-hand man, executing shadowy tasks without a trace of remorse, mirrors the very discretion Brennan demands. But old prejudices die hard. Brennan can't shake the image of Jason as the infamous hitman, a ghost from Port Charles lore who has dodged bullets and badges alike. And he worries that Carly's lingering affection for him, born from years of crises shared and unspoken understandings, might loosen Jason's lips. Carly's soft spot for Jason is no secret. It's woven into the fabric of their history. From the time he saved her from a crumbling bridge during a storm to quieter moments where she'd patch his wounds over coffee, their bond a quiet rebellion against the chaos around them. Brennan senses this pull, a jealousy simmering beneath his professional facade, fueled by tales of Jason's loyalty to Sonny that paint him as an unpredictable wild card rather than a steadfast ally. In Brennan's mind, Jason's reputation overshadows his proven track record, leading him to doubt whether the promise to Jocelyn will hold when Carly's probing questions inevitably arise, her intuition as sharp as a detective's. What Brennan wields against Jason, in subtle persuasion, but a blunt instrument of coercion, bordering on outright blackmail that reeks of desperation from a man used to calling the shots. He dangles knowledge of Jason's unprosecuted sins, those gritty enforcer jobs for Sonny, like the hushed-up warehouse skirmish that left rivals reeling, or the midnight delivery gone awry that buried evidence deep in the harbor, threatening to drag them into the light with a single call to the authorities. These aren't vague accusations. Brennan has dossiers thick with details, compiled from WSB intercepts and FBI cross-references, painting Jason as a man whose freedom hangs by the thinnest thread. Exposure wouldn't just mean arrest. It could unravel Sonny's empire, drawing federal eyes to every corner of Port Charles and forcing Jason back into a cage of legal battles he's fought to avoid for years. Jason's jaw clenches at the leverage, his mind racing through countermeasures, hating how Brennan twists the knife of his past against him like a personal vendetta. But Jason ain't without his own arsenal. Unbeknownst to Brennan, he holds fragments of the agent's skeletons, whispers of a botched op in Eastern Europe that cost innocent lives, or a hidden alliance with a cartel that the WSB swept under the rug, secrets gleaned from old contacts and late-night hacks into unsecured files. This mutual dirt creates a powder keg, where one wrong move could detonate scandals on both sides. The mandate is crystal clear. Jason must stonewall Carly at all costs, no matter how she circles him with her relentless curiosity, demanding answers about the waterfront whispers or the odd tension she sensed in his silences. Carly's not one to back down. Her history of bulldozing through lies, from exposing Nicholas' schemes to unraveling Dawn's deceptions, makes her a formidable force, and Jason knows resisting her will test every ounce of his resolve. Picture the scenes ahead. Carly cornering him at the Metro Court, her eyes narrowing over a steaming latte, or pulling him aside during a Metro Court gala, her voice a mix of concern and accusation as she pieces together the failed WSB raid from scattered news clips. The ops collapse at Five Poppies has ripples everywhere, patrons scattering like leaves in the wind, undercover agents blowing covers in the panic, and Pascal's trail leading to potential threats against Port Charles itself, from smuggled weapons to encrypted data that could blackmail the elite. Jason's trapped, dead to rights in Brennan's grip, unable to retaliate without risking everything. Forcing him to nod in grim acceptance, the agent lays out the terms with cold precision. In a tense standoff under the pier's flickering lights, the two men forge an uneasy pact, Jason's agreement extracted through gritted teeth, laced with the bitterness of betrayal. He doesn't trust Brennan one iota, the agent's smug assurance, the way his hand lingers too long on Jason's shoulder as if sealing a blood oath. All scream ulterior motives tied to WSB politics or personal grudges from Jason's FBI days. This deal is just about silence. It binds Jason to a web of favors, perhaps calling on him for off-the-books muscle in future ops, turning the once independent enforcer into an unwilling pawn in Brennan's game. As they part ways, Jason's mind whirls with contingencies, reaching out to Spinelli for digital dirt or confiding just enough in Sam to gauge loyalties while Brennan vanishes into the night, convinced he secured his secrets but blind to the storm brewing. For fans, this clash hints at explosive fallout. Will Carly's intuition crack the facade, leading to a mother-daughter confrontation that redefines their bond? Or could Jason's hidden knowledge flip the script, exposing Brennan's vulnerabilities and shifting power back to Port Charles' core players? Stay tuned as these shadows deepen, promising twists that could redefine alliances in the heart of General Hospital.